One evening, after I had returned from school and was sitting in the salon telling my mother about my day, my father arrived home with a porter from the marketplace who was carrying several large tins. They were given to Hajar, and my father afterwards explained that these things must be filled with storable foodstuffs. The situation is serious, he explained to my grandmother's wooden face. I shall go to the market tomorrow. Palace gossip suggested our country will go to war. Enver and Talat Pasha are strongly pro German, and if I have to go away, I want to feel that everything possible has been done for your comfort. My mother's face grew serious, and I knew that a discussion was imminent. I half expected to be sent away, but my father said I might stay, adding, when I'm gone, you will be the only man in the house, therefore you must know how to guard your womenfolk, eh? And he playfully pulled my ear. He stood leaning against a console table. For the first time, I felt him to be old. I did not know he was only 26, and perhaps if I had, I should still have considered him old, for 26 is a gigantic age to a child. That evening, he looked white and tired. Had my father been born in this age in another country, he would not have fought in any war. He was essentially a man of peace, a good Muslim, who feared his God with an awful fear and believed in an afterlife. A man who was appalled by the poverty of his people and who, in his own small way, attempted to alleviate it. The carnage and brutality and utter senselessness of war tore his heart for the ordinary man who has caught up in the military machine. I have no picture of him, and his face refuses to clearly emerge from the mists of time, but my mother represented him as a tinker, a bit of a dreamer, if you will, a man more fitted for the leisured life than the life he was afterwards to know. He had sure knowledge of Turkey's muddled politics, the schemings of the peacock Enver, the treachery and greed of his subordinates, the weakness of the Sultan, and the lack of organisation, the unpreparedness of Turkey for a new war. That evening, I remember, he told my grandmother that he had received an offer for our house, too good, he estimated, to refuse. She looked thoughtful and said, I do not know how we shall manage in a smaller house, and there are servants to be considered too. Hajar must go, declared my father, and one wonders how it must have hurt him to talk like this to his womenfolk. He who only wanted to heap fine gifts on them. Faraday, he continued, must take over the kitchen. You must arrange these domestic problems yourself, but Hajar is to go. Oh dear, said my mother. Is it really necessary for Hajar to go? Yes, said my father. One day gold will buy nothing for you. Whatever amount of stocks we get in now will only last a certain time. So the less mouths there are to feed, the better. Today the colonel told me that all the army are buying so fast that the shops are emptying. Murat and the horses must go too. There will be no place in the new house for a phaeton. No, said my grandmother violently, standing up so quickly that she knocked over a bowl of roses which stood on a little bureau. I refused to part with Murat. Fascinatedly, I watched the water from the overturned bowl spreading darkly on the carpet. This is no time to think of grandeur, said my father. You have not seen the poverty outside your house or the bewilderment on the faces of the soldiers with their patched uniforms and their worn-out boots. You cannot be expected to understand politics or know that our country is under the heel of the Germans. We are riddled with German influence and capital, even though we may appear to be only sitting on the fence. I don't understand a thing you say, grumbled my grandmother. And if you only want Hajar to go because of the food she eats. But though she paused, nobody enlightened her. My father had done with explanation. After that, quantities of food would arrive at the house for sorting, and the kitchen became alive with the sticky smell of jam making, and Hajar was told she would have to go. My mother moved through this activity serenely and calmly, never to my remembrance betraying her feelings, but my grandmother remained stubborn and intractable, spending most of her days paying calls as though suddenly making up for a lifetime of neglected duties. She would sit proudly and coldly in the phaeton, blaze with jewels and hauteur. She would have to give in to my father, but she intended to go down fighting. A new house was found and bought at a higher price than had been anticipated. The prices of everything had risen, and many of the shops remained closed for long periods of each day. More and more men were taken to be soldiers, and presently one saw mainly women in the streets. Servants and mistresses and prostitutes, they all had to eat and would spend their days tramping the streets in search of an open shop. Bewilderment, resignation was to be seen in all their faces, but no resentment. That came later. I had been at the French school a little over 2 months when one morning upon arrival, all the pupils were told to go to the music room instead of their classes. We were very curious, especially as all the teachers were also gathered there, and wondered if we had done something awful. Presently, the director of the school arrived, going to the dais and looking sternly down at us. At least we thought he looked stern. We said, "Bonjour, monsieur le directeur," and he replied in kind. When he spoke in Turkish, which was very unusual, but he wanted to make sure we all understand him, he said, "My children, this country is at war. This is a French school, and my country and your country are now enemies. The school will be closed indefinitely. You may all go home now, and God bless you." His voice cracked and his little goatee quivered mournfully. And that day too, my father told my mother that a pact had been signed between Turkey and Germany, and our country was now in the war. Thus ended an era for us, quietly and soberly, and with no indication that these times would never come back again.